Hey guys, my name is Daniel,
And I'm Mariah.
and today we're going to have a conversation.
About something big and scary.
The conversation is going to be reasons why people are afraid of getting married in 2023.
Marriage is a big word.
It is. Some might say the M word. Because the M word, because it's so intimidating these days. It feels like more and more, especially Gen Z or Gen Z, however you say it, and millennials are scared of getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you should tell them about the story of the couple we met last week.
Yeah, so last week we were out for dinner and we were waiting in line and there was really cute and quirky couple in front of us. And so we started chatting with them.
Those are some good adjectives.
They were cute and they were quirky.
And quirky. I like that.
And they were a little bit edgy.
That's strong.
I would say, in like a good way. And so we were chatting with them and we asked them, how old are you? And how long have you been dating for?
Yeah.
And they said they were 19 and they've been dating for a year.
Yeah.
And then Daniel asked them a big question.
A big question.
Yeah.
I was kind of messing with them, kind of serious, because they seemed in love. So I was like, oh, when are you guys getting married? Or have you guys talked about marriage before? And they looked at me as if I said a swear word.
The M word.
The M word. And we continued to talk to them, and the guy kind of opened up a bit more, and he said, he basically expressed that there was some unhealth in his parents' marriage that has deterred him from wanting to get married himself.
And isn't that the story of so many people out there?
Yeah, I feel like there's so many people who, because they haven't been given like a positive picture of marriage, they're like, what's the point? What's the point of getting married if everyone who I'm seeing who's married seems to be unhappy or dissatisfied?
And we understand that. But
Yeah.
we're also here to convince you that there is a point.
Yeah, so we're going to spend some time just talking about like a bunch of reasons, some reasons that we think people are afraid of getting married today. And this won't be a comprehensive list, so we're going to have to continue the conversation in the comments, but these are just some thoughts. So I guess one of our first thoughts are the one that was kind of sparked from the conversation with that guy last week is just like not enough positive examples of marriage being fun, desirable, enriching. And I find that, again, like we said, it's something that I feel like a lot of people feel. I feel like when people look at their parents or aunts and uncles who have had horrible marriages or marriages that didn't reflect something that was inspiring, they're like, why would I even pursue this? And I think that, we see parents, like especially like, I think is it Gen X? What's the generation before millennials?
Gen X.
Gen X?
Or after millennials? Like our parents?
Yeah, earlier than Gen X.
Gen X.
Yeah, I think people will see a lot of Gen X and be like, oh, like, these guys seem toxic. They seem like their marriages are toxic. Their families are toxic. Their parenting tendencies are toxic.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, I guess when I see that, I kind of position millennials and Gen Zs in the position of almost like the middle children.
Yeah, I see that.
In the sense that, like, they're seeing the older siblings, aka Gen X, make these mistakes, have failures, some successes, but they're able to kind of course correct based on what they're seeing in a way that the younger siblings, which is the children of the millennials and Gen Z, can actually be beneficiaries of the improvement that's capitalized on because of what we're able to see, kind of thing.
It's true.
And so, like, I think that we don't just see a negative example of marriage and be like, oh, marriage must suck. But course correct. Ask, why did that marriage suck?
I think something that's important to bring up, too, is as you start to get older, it's not just your parents and aunts and uncles that might be bad examples of marriage, but maybe you've had friends that their marriages haven't turned out.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to see your peers and your friends go through that. So I would say, like, it's not just people older than us, but even our own peers and stuff.
Yeah.
I think so that can really scare people off from ever wanting to make that commitment.
Yeah, and I think there's I think we were talking and we were saying how like there's some ways where our generation is actually set up for more success when it comes to like even emotional health, mental health, and I guess we have more resources. Like I like what you were saying about that. Just like could you speak to that a bit?
About the resources we have access to?
Why is it that we're maybe even disproportionately set up as Gen Z or millennials for healthier marriages than our parents maybe were?
Okay, well, I think there's a huge stigma that's been taken away in terms of like counseling and therapy.
Yeah.
And specifically even marriage counseling and therapy. I think it's still there a bit, like if we're to be real, but it's definitely not as much of a stigma as it used to be for the older generation. Yeah. So I think that sets us up for success because people can just go to marriage counseling even if they're not having any issues, but to be like proactive, and that's seen as normal and healthy. Yeah. Whereas in the past it was seen as like, whoa, you're going to marriage counseling? Like, are you guys okay? Yeah. So I think in that way that our generation is set up a bit better for the ability to have a healthy marriage, but you still have to put the work in. Yeah. You can't just like be like, oh, we're set up better and just still live your life unintentionally. Like, I think you still have to be so intentional with marriage and setting yourself up for success.
It's really true. Like I was saying earlier, it's like there's been no other generation where it's been more accessible to receive counseling for like mental health stuff. But the reality is accessibility doesn't really solve the problem. It's like pursuing, like it's like almost like intent or desire plus accessibility is usually leads to that healing needed to have healthy people, which lead to healthy relationships. And I think the other thing is like it's not really fair of us as Gen Zs or millennials to paint marriage like with this like almost like broad stroke and say marriage is bad, because it's like, no, marriage isn't bad marriages are bad. Like,
it's true. We
can find good marriages out there. It's almost like saying like, oh, I went to like this bad restaurant in Miami. It's like, and then saying like restaurants are bad
in Miami even.
Yeah,
like, it's just like so untrue.
Yeah, it's like no. It's like you went to a bad restaurant. That bad restaurant was a bad restaurant. It's not all restaurants are bad. So I think for us, we need to step back and be like, one, like it's possible to have healthy marriages,
and it's kind of in your control.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like marriage is something that happens to you. Like, a bad marriage is something that happens to you. It's kind of in your hands.
I think it's so true.
To make it healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think a bad marriage happens when you let it happen to you. But you can be in control of that.
Yeah.
To some extent. Obviously, there's certain factors in life that come up.
Yeah.
And that might be unfair to say, but...
Yeah, what would you say are some maybe more reasons where, like, why people find themselves in this place where they're like, marriage just isn't for me. I don't want to get married. Can you think of?
I think the loss of like individual freedom is big for people.
Yeah.
I think people just want to live their life on their own terms.
Yeah, I think of like finances too. Yeah. Like, I think that it's a shift for people to go from like, I'm single, I have complete agency over my finances. And again, different people have different philosophies surrounding finance, even in marriage. Yeah. Like, I know some couples have separate bank accounts. The way you and I do it is like we share everything. We budget accordingly and decide on purchases, together. Pretty much all purchases together.
Yeah.
And for us, like that's the wisest way to go about it. Like, as much as someone could say like, oh, but that means like you can't just go out and buy a hoodie if you want to buy a hoodie. It's like, oh, but I far see the benefit of being able to like make unified decisions in finance, be able to capitalize on your brain and my brain and work together in combining, you know what I mean?
To make something even greater.
Exactly. Even. And like when it comes to living, it's like, given the housing prices these days anyways, you probably need a roommate.
And chances are you're not sleeping in the same bed.
That's actually the primary reason I believe in marriage.
Really? I thought you were going to say the primary reason you got married. I was like...
That's the primary reason I got married, for a roommate. For a roommate. I was like, who would be a good roommate?
No, but I feel like marriage, like, it ups the game a bit because you're sharing... You're sharing a room with that person. You're probably not sharing a room with your roommate, so you'll still have to pay more in rent or mortgage or whatever.
That's a hack.
So...
I sometimes talk about with people how marriage is like a bit of a financial hack too. Okay. So like obviously utility aside, don't get me wrong, utility aside, marriage as a romantic relationship is beautiful and lovely.
But we're talking strictly business.
But strictly business, there's a lot of ways, and we can go into that on another episode, but there's a lot of reasons why marriage is economical. Case in point, last night we went out for food. We shared a drink.
We shared a drink, yeah.
And yes, I'm kind of laughing at myself inside because you could share a drink with a friend, but
it's just different.
But you get what I mean.
It's like more cute.
Exhibit 2. Exhibit B or Exhibit 2, depending on how you look at it. Living in a city, it's like, if I were to find a place with a roommate, I would be paying like so much more than what we're paying now because we're sharing a 1-bedroom as opposed to having to share two. Anyways, you guys get the point. Let's go on to another reason. What's another reason why people... I think lack of commitment is one as well.
Like fearing that, whoa, we're committing to this for life.
Yeah, and there's
and like that kind of goes with lack of example because maybe they haven't seen many people make it past a certain year. And so like, okay, when we were getting married, you were 24 and I was 22. Do you feel like you had a full grasp of like... No. Like, obviously, we knew we're getting married and it's for life. Like, we knew that, but do you feel like you really, really understood in your mind, like, the next 60 years I'm going to be with this person plus?
Like, in one sense, I could conceptualize it a bit, because I've seen, like, couples grow old together. Both of our parents have been together for 30 plus years. Yeah. And so I kind of conceptually understand it, but it's something that I didn't fully grasp until I was in it. Like, I knew I was committing to you for life, but it's like, oh man, we are literally going to see each other get old. And that's probably going to be for the next 70 years, 60 to 70 years. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
So it's just like a crazy thought. But I think that something that I was thinking about is like every other commitment we make in life, whether it be like a house purchase or a job or maybe even a lease agreement, we can get out of. Like there's like, it's almost like there's a defined and definitive end.
Yeah.
Whereas like, for marriage, in theory, the definitive end, and I say in theory because obviously people are ending marriages all the time, but in theory, the definitive end is death. So I feel like people have this like they understand what a contract means, but it's almost like a marriage is like even a deeper commitment than that, and it's kind of like it's almost like tied in with the fear of death of people. Like, you know how people go almost like fear death because they're like, oh, what if I have all these unresolved goals? And it's like, I feel like sometimes people carry marriage in that same way of like, oh, what if I chose the right person? Or what if I wasted, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes people fear that and get in their heads, but forget to realize that, like, no, like, there's something enriching. Like, even psychological tests have shown us that, like the happiest and healthiest people have been people who have had monogamous relationships for life. You know what I mean? Anyways, it's just interesting.
And I think, like, people understand how much people change in life.
Yeah.
Like, there's a quote or something. It's like, I've been married to 7 different women. They all have the same name. Like, it's one woman.
Yeah.
But they've just been through, like, changes in life.
Yeah.
And I think that can scare people.
Yeah. Because
the person you married is likely going to be a lot different in 10 years. And that's challenging. I agree. But I think marriage is not like oh, they changed a bit. Like, this isn't one I signed up for. Like, well, it kind of is what you signed up for.
Yeah.
You literally did sign up for it to be there with them through everything. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge commitment. I kind of get why people would be afraid to make that.
What I think is funny, too, is that, like, sometimes people are more committed to their kids than their spouse. Wow. Because, like, think about it. Like, people have a kid, and you never cease to be their parent. Even if you ignore them, it's just like if a kid is 5 and they're super cute and they're 18, they become a bit less cute. You're still their parent.
Talking back a little.
So it's just like, yeah, and it's like they're 30 years old and they didn't really make much of their life. You're still their parent. And again, there's so many holes in this like thinking, but like it's like sometimes I just find it funny sometimes when people will, again, this is so controversial, but like when people have a kid with someone but not marry them, it's like you're committing to them for life whether you like it or not.
Through the
and
child.
then like, yeah, through the child, and then it's like you're always, if you have a kid with them, you're always going to see the person in the kid.
It's true.
And it's like, anyways, I just think it's interesting. It's an interesting concept for sure. I wanted to go back to the economical piece.
Okay.
Because I find that like something that I hear a lot with guys these days is that they're almost worried about the character of their spouse, and like especially if they're coming to the marriage with assets, they're like, okay, what if the person marries me just to take my assets? Or like it's almost like people are trying to like really protect themselves, and people will talk about like signing papers so that when it comes
like wasn't someone telling you to do that?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna mention that, but like yeah, but it's just like
I'm not in it for the money.
Basically, background is like I came into the marriage with an asset, and basically someone was asking me, "Oh, have you figured what's the thing that you signed?
Prenup?
Yeah, have you thought about having her sign a prenup?" And I was like, "No, like to be honest, I wouldn't do that. One, that like conflicts with my definition of marriage based on my faith, and two, it's like if I don't trust her enough, if I don't trust her to steward my finances well, or to like have pure motives towards me in getting married to me and loving me for who I am, I probably shouldn't trust her to be my roommate.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't trust her to be the mother of my kids.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't be getting into the marriage in general. So
like there's way bigger issues at hand.
Yeah, my thinking is like if I need the person that I'm marrying to sign a prenup, I probably shouldn't be getting married to them at all, because there's probably far deeper like mistrust under that, or poor character in the other person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like there's a financial pressure surrounding weddings.
Yeah.
I heard someone one time say they were trying to save $100,000.
Man.
For their wedding, and
that wasn't even like life after. That was just for the wedding.
No, it was like literally for the wedding. Man. And I was like, that's a wedding.
If you're spending, that is a wedding. If you're spending $100,000 on a wedding, that thing better like feed your kids for the next 30 years. Better pay for their education.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It better be paying you back dividends.
It better be paying you back dividends. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of financial pressure surrounding like the big day or even the rings, and
most people haven't even seen $100,000 in person.
It's true.
Spending that on an event,
face to face. So I think something that the pandemic did, which was good, I think, is take a little bit of that financial pressure off and make it like more normal to have super small weddings, or more normal to have like really simple weddings.
Yeah.
Which is good, because like the reality is like your wedding day is so important and so beautiful, but it's really about the years after.
Yeah.
And so like there's a lot of things you can do to make it special and not have it be crazy expensive. And I think sometimes when people focus too much on like putting a bunch of money into their wedding day and making it perfect, it's like almost a little concerning to me.
Yeah.
Just because like that's not the priority.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes people can get so wrapped up in like the fairy tale of it, or like, oh, this is my picture of it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you can become more in love with the day than the person you're marrying.
It probably happens.
And I'm just like trying to think like, at the end of the day, who are you trying to impress? It's like, because we think short-sighted sometimes, when we're like, oh, this day means so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, people will remember your wedding if it's awesome, or if it's not awesome 5, 10, 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, if you, like the number one investment that you can really prioritize leading up into the wedding is on the relationship. Because like 30 years down the road, even 10 years down the road, there's a lot of people who will be impressed by your wedding.
Yeah.
that won't be impressed by your marriage.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of people who will see your wedding and be with you on that day that won't necessarily be like even in relationship with you enough to be able to say like, oh, I'm gonna support you in the.
It's true.
Yeah, we almost like prioritize the wrong audiences.
Yeah.
When it should be like, okay, let's build a strong marriage.
Yeah.
And if this blesses the people who are coming to our wedding, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's almost like, what did you say earlier? You're like, oh, make weddings uncool again.
Make simple weddings cool again.
Yeah, make simple.
Or, I don't
weddings.
even know if they've ever been cool.
Yeah, make simple weddings cool for the first time.
Period.
Yeah, I think that's so true.
Yeah. Is there any other reasons that come to mind for you?
Yeah, there's tons more, but I think we should continue the conversation in the comments.
Yeah. Feel free to share if you've had any fears surrounding marriage or any positive stories surrounding marriage. I think we said this, but we've been married for 4 years, and it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's hard, and it's awesome. And so we just want to share a bit of our thoughts on marriage to encourage people that it's not as scary as it seems. And it is a big thing, but I think it can be done well and it can be done right. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, like continue the conversation in the comments. Our hope is that the best conversations aren't the ones that are happening between Mariah and I, but are the conversations that are happening in the comments. So subscribe, comment, like, all the stuff. And if you want a part 2 to this episode, make sure to comment that as well, because we'd love to kind of think through more reasons why people don't get married these days, or don't want to get married these days. Anyways, be blessed as you go. It's great to chat.
See you.